The anime begins by showing Jinguji Tsukasa, a handsome man, and his friend Tachibana Hinata, who is dressed as a girl, suddenly finding themselves transported from the human world to a mystical land. As they survey their new surroundings, they can't help but notice each other's awkward appearances. Tsukasa is taken aback by Hinata's stunning beauty and tries to remind himself that he shouldn't be fooled by his friend's new look. Despite the fact that Hinata now appears to be a gorgeous woman with alluring charm, he is still the same 30-year-old man that Tsukasa has always known. As they walk through this new world, their unintentional touches result in both of them reflexively pulling away from each other, feeling somewhat uncomfortable. Hinata tries to remain calm and reminds himself that even though he is now in a woman's body, he is still a normal man who is only interested in women. He knows he must not be charmed or, even worse, fall in love with Tsukasa. Hinata worries that their future together will be ruined if he starts to develop romantic feelings for his best friend. Tsukasa also makes it clear that he won't be tempted by men, even though he has now transformed into a stunningly beautiful girl. The scene shifts back to when Tsukasa and Tachibana were still in the human world. They were in a restaurant's bathroom washing their hands while discussing the beautiful girls in the restaurant. Tachibana, who had always been obsessed with girls, was admiring their beauty, while Tsukasa, who was known for his good looks and popularity with girls, seemed indifferent and uninterested. He abruptly changed the subject and started talking about the aquarium restaurant and the fish in the aquarium. Tachibana was surprised and asked why Tsukasa had agreed to go on a blind date at the restaurant if he wasn't interested in girls. Tsukasa didn't give a direct answer but instead scolded Tachibana for being so easily fooled by a girl's appearance. He warned Tachibana to be more cautious and familiarize himself with girls before getting too attached. Tachibana became upset and accused Tsukasa of sounding like his own mother, who always nagged him with similar advice. Tsukasa didn't back down and continued to emphasize the importance of being wary of girls' intentions. Tsukasa and Tachibana had been friends since elementary school, despite having different paths in life. Tsukasa was always successful in everything he did, and his good looks and charisma made him popular among both male and female students. From junior high to college, Tsukasa's popularity continued to grow, and he became the idol of all women. However, despite his popularity, Tsukasa was very selective when it came to dating. He would only date girls who met his high standards, and he quickly lost interest in them if he discovered any flaws or bad habits. Tsukasa would often advise Tachibana to be cautious and choose wisely when it came to dating, but Tachibana saw through Tsukasa's facade and realized that his friend was just trying to keep him from being single. Tachibana understood that there were not many girls who fit Tsukasa's ideal type, and he didn't want to rely on his friend's approval to find love. So, he decided to pursue his own path and date whomever he wanted. Tsukasa didn't try to stop him, and their friendship remained strong, even though they had different approaches to dating. The night after the blind date, Tachibana was feeling down and drowning his sorrows in alcohol. He ranted about his ideal girl, describing her as petite, with shiny blonde hair and a pleasant scent. Tsukasa listened patiently, but couldn't help but feel that Tachibana's criteria were too specific. He wondered if his own high standards were also the reason why he was still single. Tachibana, still drunk, expressed his envy towards Tsukasa's charm and popularity with women, and bemoaned his own bad luck with relationships. He even suggested that if Tsukasa didn't exist, he might have a better chance with girls. Curious about Tsukasa's own preferences, Tachibana asked him what type of girl he liked. To Tachibana's surprise, Tsukasa had no specific criteria and was open to dating anyone. Tachibana found this strange, but still appreciated their friendship nonetheless. As the night wore on, Tachibana's drunken ranting about his dream girl reached a fever pitch. Suddenly, a naked woman appeared before them, bathed in a brilliant light. Introducing herself as the goddess of love and beauty, she cast a spell on Tachibana, causing him to pass out. Tsukasa attempted to intervene but found himself transported to a strange new world alongside his friend. When they came to their senses, they realized that Tachibana had been transformed into a woman who met all of his ideal criteria. The goddess of love explained that they were cursed to fall in love with each other, and could only break the curse by defeating the demon king in the fantasy world. Despite their mutual attraction, Tsukasa and Hinata rejected their feelings and set off on their mission. Along the way, they walked and talked, with Tsukasa finding Hinata even more endearing in her new form. She, too, found herself smitten with Tsukasa's charm and good looks. But as they journeyed on, Hinata grew weary, her feet sore and weak from the long walk. Concerned for his friend, Tsukasa suggested they rest at the nearby riverside. Hinata couldn't help but feel conflicted as Tsukasa revealed his true feelings about Hinata's transformation. Despite feeling hurt, Hinata wasn't ready to give up on his friend just yet. With a hint of desperation, Hinata asked Tsukasa if he had ever thought of him as cute before. Tsukasa didn't answer the question, instead revealing his hatred towards the situation they found themselves in. Hinata was taken aback by Tsukasa's response, but he didn't give up hope just yet. As they continued walking, Hinata pretended to fall and asked Tsukasa to carry him, hoping to ease the tension between them. Even though he felt ashamed of this situation, deep down, Hinata was still a 32-year-old man. To his surprise, Tsukasa didn't hesitate and offered Hinata a princess-style sling. Despite Tsukasa appearing relaxed, Hinata could sense the turmoil within him. It was as if there was an unspoken attraction between them, and Hinata couldn't help but feel conflicted. When they were talking, a monster suddenly appeared from within the forest and started chasing after them. In a panic, Hinata asked Tsukasa to carry him, and Tsukasa obliged, holding Hinata in a princess-style sling. But as they ran, Hinata clung to Tsukasa tightly, making the scene look like something out of a romance novel. Tsukasa was both nervous and excited, not because of the monster chasing them, but because he couldn't resist the temptation of holding Hinata's chewy and fragrant body. Tsukasa and Hinata are running away from the monster chasing them. Tsukasa suddenly stops and turns around to confront the monster head-on. Hinata, surprised by Tsukasa's bravery, urges him to flee. But Tsukasa stands his ground and, with a single strike, kills the monster. The duo then decides to check their strength levels, and it becomes clear that Tsukasa has an incredible power level, while Hinata's is quite low. They continue to explore their abilities. Hinata discovers a strange skill and decides to try it out. To his amazement, a door suddenly appears before them. Without hesitation, they step through the door and find themselves in Hinata's room. It appears that Hinata had subconsciously wished to return home, and his strange skill allowed him to make it a reality. When they entered the door, Hinata and Tsukasa found themselves in Hinata's house. Despite searching for a door that led to another room, they couldn't find one. They settled in and had spaghetti for dinner. Tsukasa assured Hinata that they didn't have to worry about food anymore, but Hinata revealed that it was the only food she had. Tsukasa was annoyed that Hinata couldn't take care of herself properly, but they were able to survive for the time being with access to water and taps. As they exited the magic door, Hinata emerged wearing her sister's clothes. They made their way to the village. Hinata was feeling confident that his beauty would attract all the men. However, Tsukasa playfully teased him, saying that he wouldn't be able to attract any women. This made Hinata angry, and he decided to enter the village first to prove Tsukasa wrong. Hinata entered the village. Tsukasa checked his strength status. But suddenly, they saw smoke rising from the village, and Tsukasa immediately rushed in after Hinata. The villagers were in a state of panic and were running for their lives. Unfortunately, Hinata tripped and fell, but he was saved by a male bandit who had fallen in love with him at first sight. The bandit declared his love for Hinata and even proposed to marry him. He promised to stop his life of crime and become a farmer, wanting to start a family with Hinata and have 2 children. Not long after, a man who became the leader of a group of bandits in the village appeared and even fell in love with Hinata. He also said that he was going to change his profession to become a potter and wanted to have 8 children. The 2 bandits instead fought over Hinata. Other bandits also did the same thing to Hinata until in the end, all the bandits fought each other over Hinata. At the same time, Tsukasa arrived and was shocked to see Hinata being worshipped by the villagers as a savior. Hinata was distraught by the situation and couldn't believe his beauty caused such chaos. However, the bandits were not pleased with Hinata's newfound power and threatened to attack him and Tsukasa. In an attempt to locate the remaining bandits, Hinata tried to ask for their whereabouts, but they refused to give any information. As night fell, Hinata and Tsukasa finally found the bandits' hideout. Hinata was confident that Tsukasa could defeat them alone, despite Tsukasa's annoyance at the suggestion. After seeing his status, Tsukasa felt obligated to fight the bandits. Hinata asked Tsukasa not to push himself too hard and advised him to take it easy. Tsukasa couldn't help but think of how cute Hinata was and began to imagine marrying him. Realizing his thoughts had gone too far, Tsukasa hit a nearby tree with his head until it was destroyed. Concerned, Hinata approached Tsukasa and asked what was wrong while tenderly stroking his bleeding head. However, Tsukasa suddenly threw Hinata aside in annoyance at his own vulnerability. Quickly regaining his composure, Tsukasa tied Hinata to his suit and immediately attacked the bandits that had been causing trouble nearby. With his incredible strength, Tsukasa quickly took down the bandits, plunging them into the ground like plants. Tsukasa became more protective of Hinata, scolding the villagers who tried to get too close to him. This made Hinata realize just how severe the curse was and strengthened his resolve to complete their mission of killing the Demon King. Remembering how he had accidentally slapped Tsukasa before, Hinata apologized to him, and the two made peace with each other. They entered the bandit headquarters. They found a huge stash of money. Tsukasa initially refused to take it, but the village chief insisted and they eventually accepted the money. Hinata even got new clothes from their findings. However, in his excitement, Hinata accidentally set the base on fire while collecting treasures. In the morning elsewhere, Tilalilo, a beautiful elf, woke up to the gentle touch of her maid combing her hair. As she admired herself in the mirror, she couldn't help but feel proud of her looks. She felt content as she gazed out of the window, but was soon shocked by what she saw. The once lush forest outside was now burned down and destroyed. The other elves in the community were equally stunned by the devastation. Meanwhile, Tsukasa was busy skinning the monster he had defeated. The villagers looked on in amazement. They had never seen someone who could take down a monster like that before. Tsukasa then turned to them and asked how much they thought the monster's skin was worth. The villagers were unsure, but they all agreed that it must be worth a fortune. Suddenly, the village head appeared and gasped when he saw what Tsukasa was holding. He informed Tsukasa that it was the fur of the forest's guardian god, a sacred creature that was worshipped by the villagers. Tsukasa was taken aback and immediately apologized, not knowing the significance of what he was holding. However, the village head reassured him that it was fine since the god they worshipped was different from the one whose fur Tsukasa had obtained. Tsukasa stepped inside the door, only to be greeted with the unexpected sight of Hinata, who had just taken a bath, wrapped in a towel. Although Hinata explained that he was simply drying his hair, Tsukasa was clearly upset. As he helped Hinata dry his hair, Tsukasa warned him to be more careful since Hinata was now a woman and they were sharing a room. Hinata was unsure whether Tsukasa had ever been in the same room as a girl before, but he ultimately believed that this was indeed Tsukasa's first time. Tsukasa went on to say that having feelings for Hinata could lead to dangerous distortions, and that this was something that needed to be resolved immediately. Hinata, despite Tsukasa's anger, was still fascinated with the experience of being a woman. He enjoyed the attention and admiration he received from the villagers and was amused by Tsukasa's confusion over his own feelings. Tsukasa's annoyance grew as Hinata seemed to be enjoying the situation, and he even grabbed Hinata's head roughly to emphasize the seriousness of the situation. Hinata, in pain and fear, quickly changed back to being a man, surprised by Tsukasa's sudden shift in demeanor. Hinata then complimented Tsukasa on his hair drying skills, impressed by how neat and shiny his hair looked. Tsukasa revealed that he had learned how to dry hair by observing barbers in salons. Despite the tension, the two of them seemed to have reached a sense of understanding, with Hinata realizing that he needed to take Tsukasa's feelings into consideration. Then when they came out of the door, Tsukasa and Lilili were confronting the villagers about the skinned god of protector. Hinata felt uncomfortable and decided to retreat back to the control room. He couldn't stand watching the villagers being scolded like employees being reprimanded by their boss. Hinata felt a sense of empathy towards the villagers and wanted to avoid the tense situation. Tsukasa and Hinata walked out of the room to see Lilili fuming with anger over the god of protector of the forest skinning. Tsukasa didn't apologize and instead challenged Lilili to a fight, leading to a heated altercation between them. Hinata quickly intervened and separated them before the situation could escalate further. To everyone's surprise, Lilili challenged Hinata to a beauty contest, donning revealing clothes prepared by her maid. Tsukasa didn't approve of Lilili's attire, and claimed that Hinata was still the prettier one. Lilili gathered the villagers and asked them to vote for the most beautiful among them. To her dismay, they chose Hinata over her, and she felt her pride being trampled. Enraged, Lilili attacked Tsukasa and Hinata, causing them to flee into the forest. When they hid, Tsukasa and Hinata launched a secret attack on Lilili by throwing a stone at her hair, causing the elf to be shocked and burst into tears as her beautiful hair was destroyed. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Hinata continued their journey, reminiscing about their childhood memories of playing games together. Tsukasa was often the hero or main character in Tachibana's games, which they used to play as kids. That evening, Tsukasa prepared a meal using the meat of the forest's guardian god while Hinata rested in his room. Despite his initial shock, Hinata eventually joined Tsukasa for dinner, and they both drank alcohol. However, Hinata got very drunk and ran off into the forest where he was almost eaten by a plant monster. Tsukasa rushed to his rescue but became distracted when Hinata's underwear was accidentally revealed. Tsukasa quickly snapped out of it and defeated the monster to save Hinata. After surviving the monster, Hinata and Tsukasa arrived in Hinata's room. They discussed their experiences in the forest. Hinata was still upset about his sticky body, feeling frustrated that Tsukasa couldn't understand what it was like to be a woman. He also couldn't help but be envious of Tsukasa's cool name, as opposed to his own, which he felt sounded more like a female name. Finally, Tsukasa realized why Hinata often used his name as the main character in their childhood games. As they returned to Hinata's room using a magic door, Lily arrived and helped herself to the leftover meat on the table, despite it being from the forest guardian god that she admired. While she was enjoying her meal, she was suddenly attacked by a plant monster and pulled away. After a long journey, Tsukasa and Hinata finally arrived in the bustling city. Tsukasa wasted no time and immediately sold the skin of the forest guardian god they had hunted, but to their disappointment, they only received 10 silver coins in exchange. Hinata, already in a bad mood, was further annoyed when Tsukasa insisted that she wear a paper bag to hide her face. He argued that Hinata's beauty would attract too much attention and might even cause trouble. To lift Hinata's spirits, Tsukasa treated her to some delicious food. However, Hinata's mood did not improve and she demanded that they use the money to buy weapons. Tsukasa was initially hesitant, but he eventually gave in to Hinata's request. When they arrived at the gun shop, Tsukasa and Hinata requested to buy knives for hunting. After completing their purchase, the gunsmith commented on their conspicuous disguises and offered a cheap price of 300 gold coins for a hair ornament that could distract many people. Tsukasa declined the offer and left, but Hinata insisted on using their looks to acquire the ornament for free. Against his wishes, Tsukasa found himself inside the shop bidding on the hair ornament. Hinata's beauty left the gun shop owner awestruck, and he even offered all his possessions in exchange for a chance to marry her. The villagers gazed upon Hinata's beauty through the shop window. Tsukasa quickly realized the dangerous situation and hurriedly pulled Hinata inside the shop. The shop owner, who was still under the spell of Hinata's beauty, finally snapped out of it and apologized for his behavior. Meanwhile, the villagers outside were still enchanted by Hinata's appearance, but Tsukasa managed to distract them with a performance of his own, drawing their attention away from Hinata. After the commotion died down, Tsukasa and Hinata resumed their shopping, buying some much-needed supplies for their journey. As they were leaving, the gunsmith approached them once again, offering them a discount on some high-quality weapons. After Tsukasa bought the hair ornament for Hinata, they were still worried about the attention Hinata's beauty could bring. To solve the problem, Tsukasa purchased a costume suit that made Hinata unrecognizable. With this, they were able to explore the city without drawing unwanted attention. However, while they were walking through the crowded market, they noticed that they were being followed by the bandits they had fought off earlier. As they tried to escape, the bandit leader recognized Hinata's beauty and fell in love with him all over again. He ordered his subordinates to attack Tsukasa and capture Hinata. Just as they were about to be caught, the mysterious cloaked man who had previously watched over Tsukasa appeared and saved them. In the midst of the chaos, Tsukasa and Hinata were shocked to see the cloaked man's face, revealing that he was actually someone they had known before. The cloaked man revealed himself to be a young man named Schwart von Liechtenstein Lohengram. Despite his charming demeanor, Tsukasa remained wary and introduced himself under a false name. Schwart was immediately taken by Hinata's beauty and began to question their relationship. He believed Tsukasa to be the adoptive father and Hinata to be the adopted daughter, leading him to imagine a romantic relationship developing between the two of them over time. Schwart's misunderstanding of Tsukasa and Hinata's relationship led him to challenge Tsukasa to a fight, with the intention of surpassing him. As Schwartz swung his sword down, Tsukasa was surprised to see that it was an incredibly strong weapon. However, before the fight could progress any further, the military police arrived and arrested Schwartz, much to the shock of Tsukasa and Hinata. The trio was taken to the police station as witnesses, where Schwartz claimed to be a hero from a fantasy world who had come to save the world from the Demon King. The policemen doubted Schwartz. Even as Schwartz pointed to the symbol of the goddess of the night, he was increasingly considered a fraud. When he saw the symbol that Schwartz pointed out, Hinata immediately took off his clothes and asked Tsukasa if the symbol was the same as the one on the back of his neck. Tsukasa was shocked and overheated because he saw Hinata's very sexy body. When the interrogation continues, the lord of the city arrives and makes a proposition to Schwartz, Tsukasa, and Hinata. If they can defeat one of the dangerous armor monsters that have been terrorizing the city, the police will release them. The monster has been causing chaos in the neighborhood for some time, and this would be a way to prove Schwartz's claims of being a hero. As they journeyed to the location of the monster with the young policeman Lucius, they learned that the monster's armor had a strange preference for clothes rather than life, which made Tsukasa and the others uneasy. Suddenly, an armored monster charged at them from the forest, prompting them to engage in battle. However, Schwart hesitated to use his powerful sword, fearing its destructive force could harm innocent people. Even Hinata chimed in, stating that the sword could accidentally harm individuals foraging for wild vegetables in the forest. Schwart, Tsukasa, Hinata, and the young police officer Lucius then were tasked with defeating an armor monster that had been plaguing the city. The lord of the city promised to release Schwart, Tsukasa, and Hinata if they could successfully defeat the monster. As they discussed their strategy, they were suddenly attacked by the armored monster. Schwart hesitated to use his sword due to its incredible power but decided to use the sword sheath instead. He fought with exceptional skill and speed, impressing even Lucius. However, Lucius was ultimately defeated by the monster and stripped of his clothes and sword. Hinata was taken aback when he discovered that Lucius was actually a woman who had disguised herself as a man. Lucius, on the other hand, was relieved as she had always wanted to be seen as a man. Hinata, without hesitation, took off his shirt and offered it to Lucius. Tsukasa, who was observing the situation, felt his body temperature rising, and he had to hold Schwart back from making a move on Hinata. Worried that the armored monster would target Hinata next, Tsukasa gave his jacket to Hinata and warned him not to undress carelessly. Despite Tsukasa's caution, Schwart continued to fantasize about Hinata and even went as far as likening their relationship to that of a boyfriend lending clothes to his partner. Tsukasa, unable to accept such a comparison, lost his temper and warned Hinata not to take off his clothes in public. The group couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Tsukasa's movements were almost inhuman, as if he had been training for years to face such a monster. Schwart was amazed, never having seen such precision and skill. Even Lucius, a seasoned officer, was impressed. Hinata could barely contain his excitement, jumping up and down in amazement. But their victory was short-lived, as they heard a small voice calling out from within the armor costume. To everyone's surprise, a small female figure emerged, controlling the armor from within. The battle against the Demon King's army continued, and the heroes managed to capture a young girl named Fitz. Despite being interrogated by Lucius and the city lord, Fitz remained arrogant and defiant. This frustrated Lucius to the point that he repeatedly electrocuted her in an attempt to get her to talk. Meanwhile, the city lord refused to believe in the existence of the demon lord, dismissing it as a mere myth. As for Fitz, she was skeptical of Schwart's claim that he was a hero. In the morning, Schwart arrived at Tsukasa and Hinata's room with the hope of seeing Hinata, who had just woken up. However, he found only Tsukasa inside the room with Hinata's magic door. Schwart was curious about the door, and suddenly heard Hinata's voice from inside it. Seeing Schwart's confusion and the mail items in Hinata's room, Hinata decided to tell Schwart the truth. At noon, they went to someone's place to investigate the big hole that Fitz used to escape from the dungeon. During their investigation, Lucius revealed that Fitz managed to escape with the help of a partner. However, Schwart was still in shock after learning the truth about Hinata's gender. He felt heartbroken and never thought that his first love was actually a man. Hinata tried to comfort him, but Fitz's presence only made things worse for Schwart, as it triggered flashbacks of his first impression of Hinata. Despite this, Fitz thought that Hinata had not changed at all and was still good at socializing. Hinata and Tsukasa teach Schwart how to check his power status. When they discover Schwart's power level, Schwart becomes insecure and refuses to reveal his real name. Despite this, they continue to explore Schwart's abilities. Suddenly, the sky turns dark and splits open. As it turns out, Schwart had accidentally summoned the sleeping goddess of darkness. The drowsy goddess utters a few ominous words, stating that darkness has already arrived. The goddess said that she could already feel it, but she still couldn't play. She was still in a daze, but able to sense something in the air. Hinata cautioned that the goddess was someone else's type and suggested someone else translate for her. The dark goddess then inquired why Schwart had summoned her, to which he replied that he had no specific reason and was just testing his skills alone. The goddess then chuckled, admiring Schwart's confidence in himself. She then approached Hinata and noticed the symbolic mark on the back of her neck, proclaiming that Hinata was chosen to be the heroine of the goddess of love and beauty. Curious, Hinata asked why the dark goddess had been summoned by Schwart. Schwart explained that he had been possessed by darkness, which the dark goddess confirmed, leading Hinata to realize the extent of Schwart's power. Schwart was asked by the goddess of darkness about the sword she had given him, but he replied hesitantly that it was being maintained. The goddess reassured him and said that it was normal to still feel guilty. She also suggested that he could ask his own goddess for a weapon. The goddess of darkness found it strange that two people were summoned to a fantasy world, and Tsukasa realized that he was Hinata's weapon. The goddess confirmed this, and Hinata was surprised. After understanding the situation, Hinata apologized to Schwart for doubting him as a true hero. Shortly after, the city leader named Merkuz proposed marriage to Hinata, who is actually male. To awaken Merkuz from his infatuation with Hinata, Lucius electrocutes him repeatedly until he regains his senses. Following the departure of the Dark Goddess, Merkuz gathers the people to hold a party to celebrate the city being visited by the Dark Goddess and the arrival of several heroes. Although Merkuz offers the heroes the opportunity to live in the city and receive compensation every month, only Schwart accepts the offer. Tsukasa and Hinata prefer to have a free adventure, so they decide to leave the city. Before their departure, the townspeople give them a map. However, as they are about to leave for the next town, they encounter a horse-drawn carriage holding Lilili hostage. They decide to pretend not to see it and continue on their journey. A couple of days later, the group arrived at a town where the majority of the residents were fishermen and squid traders. While staying at an inn, Hinata became annoyed with Tsukasa because they had previously seen each other's ideals in the school yearbook, but Tsukasa had crossed out their own. In the midst of this frustration, a traveling merchant offered them a grilled squid. When Tsukasa attempted to apologize to Hinata, they had already left with the merchant. While Tsukasa was browsing the market, he spotted a horse-drawn carriage that looked familiar to the one he saw before holding Lilili hostage. Upon further investigation, he discovered that the owner of the carriage was the one who had sold Lilili into slavery. Tsukasa quickly confronted the man and demanded to know where Lilili was being held. He used force to get the information he needed, determined to rescue his friend. In another location, Lilili, who had been sold into slavery, resisted and thought she was about to be raped. She even suggested that it would be better if she were killed instead. However, it turned out that Lilili was going to be used as a sacrifice by a man who had bought her. The man bought Lilili because of her beauty and sex appeal. Soon after, the grilled squid merchantman arrived with Hinata. However, it was revealed that the grilled squid merchantman was not a real merchant, but a kidnapper. He then handed Hinata over to Lilili at that spot. Later on, a man named Shen rescued Hinata and brought him to meet a woman named Muria. Following their meeting with Muria, the female leader of the royal army, Tsukasa and Hinata were brought before the king. The king appeared eccentric, and was only wearing a piece of cloth as his clothing, as was the guard beside him. Hinata tried to use his beauty to enchant the king, but it had no effect on him. The king then told Tsukasa and Hinata that they were the heroes who were destined to save mankind by defeating the demon king. As such, they were obligated to help the kingdom defeat the demon lord. After the meeting with the king, Tsukasa and Hinata were invited to join a big party in the kingdom. There, Tsukasa and Hinata were both awestruck by the grandeur of the event and each other's appearance. Tsukasa was so entranced that he even envisioned a future with Hinata, imagining that they would get married and have children together. However, his jealousy got the best of him, and he asked Shen to stay in the kitchen to avoid being tempted by Hinata's beauty. Hinata was annoyed by Tsukasa's childish behavior and decided to step outside for some fresh air. Muria, the female leader of the royal army, accompanied him. Since he was unable to enjoy the party, Hinata decided to take a walk around, during which he came across a beautiful woman who was alone. Initially, he felt the need to hide, but later he was uncertain why he had done so. When he saw the woman again, he believed that she was attempting to take her own life, and therefore resolved to rescue her. In the end, they shared their problems with one another, with Hinata confiding in her about Tsukasa's irritating behavior. The woman, in turn, stated that Hinata appeared to have a fondness for Tsukasa. After recollecting a past incident, Hinata recognized that he had never received a compliment from Tsukasa and yearned for one. When the woman, named Yugrain, was about to depart, having been collected by her maids, she thanked Hinata for his assistance, and stated that he was dull, but intriguing to her. That night, Tsukasa and Hinata had a conversation about various topics, including the beautiful woman that Hinata had encountered earlier. While they were in the middle of their conversation, Yugrain arrived and introduced herself as a princess from another kingdom. Upon learning this, Hinata appeared surprised. Yugrain expressed her admiration for Hinata, who she believed to be a hero of the goddess of love. She then requested to join them on their travels, but Tsukasa declined her request. Even when Yugrain sought permission from the king, she was still denied due to her childish behavior. After being refused permission to travel and insulted by Tsukasa, Yugrain revealed that her father was bald and had a hobby of wearing fake wigs. Hinata felt sorry for Yugrain and promised to help her, to which she appeared grateful. Yugrain then disclosed that she felt abandoned by her father due to her mother's absence. However, Hinata's well-intentioned offer of help backfired when he discovered that Ukraine was actually gathering followers to rebel against the king. This put the kingdom in danger, and the king decided to seek assistance from someone to help Tsukasa. After several members of other kingdoms joined the rebellion, Ukraine and her group requested that Hinata charm the men and join them with his beauty. However, Hinata was not happy with this situation and tried to escape with Muria. Unfortunately, their attempts failed, leaving Hinata feeling hopeless. Hinata felt remorseful because he believed he was powerless without Tsukasa's assistance. He reminisced about when Tsukasa had rescued him from the torment of his friends, and he recognized that Tsukasa was his only dependable friend who held great value in his life. As Ukraine massaged him, she slyly infused his body with dark energy, causing him to have pessimistic thoughts. While Tsukasa was feeling sad and hopeless without Hinata's presence, he summoned Schwart and Lucius, who were happy to see him again. However, when they saw Tsukasa easily destroying their weapons and clothes with a single move, they retreated. Tsukasa couldn't help but feel even more hopeless. He felt that his life had no meaning without Hinata by his side. Despite this, he found it unacceptable when Schwartz said that Tsukasa loved Hinata very much. He was angry when Schwartz suggested that Tsukasa was jealous of Ukraine for taking Hinata away from him. After a short time, a strong vibration was felt in the Isura kingdom. Tsukasa made the decision to investigate the cause of the vibration, which led them to discover a giant monster attacking the townspeople. Together with Schwart, Tsukasa fought to defeat the monster and protect the citizens of Isura. However, they soon found out that the waitress who had been helping Ukraine was actually Calm, working undercover and collaborating with Fitz. Their plan was to infect Ukraine with dark energy and ultimately destroy the Isura kingdom. Schwart, Calm, and Fitz bring Hinata and Ukraine to the kingdom's arsenal after defeating the soldiers fighting Isura. Since the warehouse requires 2 individuals with royal blood ties to open it, Hinata, who was chosen by the goddess of love and has royal blood, can assist. While serving Ukraine, Calm reflects on her past experiences and expresses her frustration to Fitz because Ukraine refuses to help open the gate despite acting childishly and making it difficult for Calm to serve her. After gaining access to the armory, Calm and Fitz discovered a huge mecha machine named Nippon. However, the situation quickly turned chaotic when Ukraine was hit, and Hinata was used as a source of power. Despite this, Fitz managed to take control of Nippon and directed it towards attacking Isura city. As Tsukasa and Schwart were evacuating civilians from harm's way, they noticed that Nippon, the giant mecha, was attacking Isura city. However, when they learned that Hinata was being used as a live battery to power the mecha, they decided to intervene. Despite Schwart's weakened state due to being separated from Tsukasa for too long, he faced Nippon alone to try to save Hinata. Tsukasa was unable to assist due to his own weakened state, so Schwart was left to confront the giant machine on his own. Miraculously, Hinata awakens and takes control of Nippon from Fitz. It becomes clear that she is still under the influence of dark energy, and holds a grudge against Tsukasa. As a result, she attacks him, while Schwart tries to intervene. Tsukasa realizes that he needs to find a way to break the influence of the dark energy, and save Hinata and Isura from destruction. Schwart, who is determined to protect Tsukasa, urges him to express his feelings to Hinata, but Tsukasa refuses, believing that it is a sign of weakness. In response, Schwart hits him and tells him that expressing one's feelings is not a weakness. Tsukasa confesses to Schwart that he has always felt envious and impressed by Hinata's social skills and kindness. He is amazed by how Hinata can easily get people to play with him and help others, including Tsukasa himself. Moved by Tsukasa's confession, Hinata finally breaks away from Calm's influence. After he broke free from the influence of the dark energy, Nippon went out of control and started attacking everyone. Tsukasa regained his powers and tried to destroy the robot to save Hinata. Eventually, Nippon exploded and everyone escaped. Fitz and Calm returned to the Demon Lord and called off the rebellion. The king apologized for neglecting Ukraine and Muria offered to resign, but Ukraine persuaded him to help stop the Demon Lord instead. The group then discussed how to find the Demon King's castle, and Schwart revealed that he knew its location. Schwart reveals to Tsukasa and Hinata that the reason they were chosen by the goddess of love was because they were fated to fall in love with each other. Tsukasa and Hinata are surprised by this revelation and ask why Schwart had not told them earlier. Schwart simply replies that they had never asked. As they take a break, Hinata starts to realize that he has developed romantic feelings for Tsukasa, which makes him feel confused and unsure. Tsukasa also begins to have strange thoughts, and even imagines himself getting married to Hinata. On the following day, Schwart chose to accompany Lucius to his hometown, promising to meet and support Tsukasa and Hinata later. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Hinata set off on their journey towards the Demon Lord's palace, aware that the path ahead will be challenging. Nonetheless, they have each other, and will provide unwavering support. They pledge to defeat the Demon Lord and liberate the world from the grips of evil, possessing a strong conviction and determination to achieve their goal. Although their journey may present new obstacles, they are prepared to confront them. They aim to demonstrate that the strength of their friendship and inner fortitude will assist them in accomplishing their objectives. The moral of the anime is about the importance of empathy and understanding towards others. It teaches us to avoid judging people based on our own assumptions or limited perspectives. We should always try to put ourselves in others' shoes and recognize that they may be going through challenges that we are not aware of. Additionally, we have to appreciate and be grateful for the blessings in our own lives, no matter how small they may seem. By cultivating a sense of gratitude, we can find more happiness and contentment in our daily lives.